Good morning. In case you are just joining us, karibu tena sana to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Jane Momboy. You are right in time for the first conversation of the day, and this is in regards, this is our family check segment, first of all, and it is in regards to matters concerning discipline, and more so when it comes to the school and home setups. Today we want to talk about this whole question of corporal punishment, the reintroduction of corporal punishment in schools. It was banned years ago, but we are now in a situation where we have been witnessing a wave of unrest across schools since the reopening after the almost 10-month break that our kids were on, and it has gone as far as being described as a wave of student delinquency. And we also did see the DCI come out to say that all the students who are going to be involved in any of these cases, be it arson, committing crimes in school, found in possession of some of these weapons such as pangas, knives and machetes, they are going to be facing the law, and these criminal records are going to permanently be on their records. Future plans are going to also be affected due to this criminal record that they may acquire during this space and time that we are in. But then again, the question of corporal punishment. We have seen so many people come out to express their concerns about this. Should it be the way, especially in schools, or we resort to other means of discipline before finally resorting to caning? We welcome you to be part of this conversation using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 is our official station handle. My handle is Jane Momboy, and my coach is at Ray Manyara. You can always interact with us. Share with us your questions, comments, clarifications that you may be needing in regards to this particular conversation. As a parent, what forms of discipline do you use with your child? What forms of discipline do you use with your child? Ray, why are you laughing? Because you something came to mind.
While we were growing up, my brother and I used to be caned in the morning. In the evening. Yeah. And before we go to bed. 1 times 3.
Why?
I don't know. We always used to find ourselves in situations in as much as we really tried to just follow what our parents said. It started with either we were taking breakfast too slow and we're about to miss the bus, crossing to the other side of the road to catch the school bus. I remember my dad has never held our hand. Yeah. Actually, he used to pull our ears. So we used to give him the ear, my brother and I, and that's how we used to cross the road, like clockwork.
So you know.
Every morning, that was a drill. Every evening when crossing from the other side of the school, he would receive us the same way. I don't know what was happening. And today when I look at him handling his grandchildren, at times I feel he was cloned.
Like, who is this man?
Yeah, I even asked my parents, like, what happened to you people? You used to cane us 1 times 3. Whether, I don't know if we are so naughty, but it was a drill. My father used to walk in, and we're all on alert. We just don't know where that slap will come from, or that pinch, or something. We are ever on guard.
But then again, looking at the question of different times, of course, looking at how we were growing up, I think when it comes to discipline, our parents did the best that they could with what they knew and what they had. And caning or physical punishment was what worked and what was available. Yeah? But looking at now, classic example with your old man, you look at him with your kids, you're like, who are you, father? Who are you?
Yikes.
If I did that, ingekuwa vita.
You know, even the conversation he has with my daughter, I go like, no. You actually let that pass? You let that pass?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to you, Dad? I mean, I remember even getting home, as old as I was, even in campus, we had a rule in the Manyara household that no one accessed the compound past 5:59 p.m. Go wherever you want to go. After you're done your chores. 5:59 p.m. maybe a Monday or Sunday, you have to be home.
Wewe na giza msipatane nje. One of you has to be inside.
Mnakimbizana kurudi, yeah? And to a point that my mom would call me from campus Thursday evening and tell me, I don't know, I want to remind you that tomorrow, which is Friday, I will be making dough for chapati. So I'm expecting you to come home and actually prepare the chapati.
Your mom is an MVP.
And I'm in campus, mark you, and that is Thursday.
Yeah.
So Friday, when everyone is having, it's a Friday, I am busy taking a bus, packed my books in as far as, assignments are concerned. I'm driving all the way to the other side of Kajiado.
From Athi River, you are in main campus.
Yes, to make chapati, simply because my mom has, made dough.
Declared and decreed.
And like clockwork. I think I did this for 2 years in campus.
Straight.
2 years in campus. To a point, I even told them, by the way, you know what? I want to relocate from Athi River to Nairobi, Valley Road, please. Because these trips to make chapati and such are becoming too much. And it's because my mom to date, she calls, I sit up. And I find it extremely difficult to say no. I'm usually, yes, mom, yes, yeah, yes. You'll never hear no. My dad, on the other hand, I actually stop what I was doing and I'm like, it's as if I feel as if they're looking at me. So I actually understand where proponents of corporal punishment are coming from. Because growing up that way, I knew if I did not do what my parents wanted or expected me to do, there will be dire consequences.
The alternative.
Yes, it's not something you want to deal with.
Yeah.
When you hear your mother saying, there's no one under this sun who can stop me from killing you if I want to kill you, because I gave birth to you. That is a threat made by someone who brought you to this earth. Trust me, it worked. So issue of fear, respect. Now that I'm a grown-up having my own family, I understand that. And I understand what you're saying, that we need to have a conversation with our children and the different forms of,
discipline
that
can be employed.
Take up.
Yeah.
But the stick
remains.
As an option, so that your child knows, by then mom can actually pinch me.
Kaki small can.
Yeah,
we will
mom can trash me.
So and
she can,
And then that's why I bring in this whole conversation about discipline and why are we resorting to these forms of discipline for this particular behavior. When it comes to, you can't always be resorting to caning and you can't always be resorting to talking. Look at the situation and analyze it. Try to understand if, and as a parent, given the fact that you have journeyed through life, this is a young one here, they are still discovering life. They are flipping a new page each and every day. You have gone through that phase of life. You have experienced, what you did, and now you are better positioned than this particular child. As a parent, why do you choose to discipline your child the way you do? Is it to instill fear or to make them understand the value of respect? Now, that thin line, fear versus respect, when you're bringing them up. Like the way you are brought up, not saying that it's bad, just using it as an example, given you have allowed us, there was just a sense of fear.
Oh, yes.
Akiitana unajua nimefanya nini?
Asitane.
Unaanza kuanalyze kwanza. Nilifikia home saa ngapi?
Oh yes.
Nimefanya kile nilikuwa nafanya. You don't even know why you are doing that. You just do them because the alternative, no thank you. Yes. But understanding why.
Indeed.
So that is what we are going to be discussing today. And we have a number of guests who are going to be joining Regina and I for this particular conversation via Zoom, of course. Social distancing by all means. COVID is still real. Let us take up these health protocols that we are being given by the Ministry of Health. So, getting started with this conversation about corporal punishment, we have our first guest joining us right now via Zoom. That is Mr. Timothy Ekesa. Yes, there we go, Director of KAACR, joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Timothy.
Good morning to you.
Karibu sana to Good Morning Kenya.
Asante, and thank you for bringing us back.
Absolutely. Home is always here. Now, today we're talking about this whole conversation of corporal punishment. But before we even get to that, when it comes to discipline, as a parent, how does this play out for you?
For me, discipline is a good thing. We are all disciplined, and we, as a parent, I also discipline my children. And discipline is actually trying to instill some values. Is trying to make children know that there are do's and don'ts. Also knowing that they are growing up and there are things that they are going to do wrong as an adult, and need to give them direction. It's actually giving them direction. It's the road. Whatever people refer in the Bible as spare the road, it's actually the road is the direction. So for me, I believe every child requires discipline, but that's very different from corporal punishment.
Absolutely. So looking at, the way let me use you as an example, looking at the way you were brought up and the forms of discipline that were employed, do you feel that they were the best given, how you have turned up? Very personal.
I didn't hear your question. Just come back again. I think there was network problem.
In regards to discipline and looking at how you were raised, the forms of discipline that were employed for you when you were growing up, do you feel they were effective in trying to mold you to become the person that you are today? Or there's more that could have been done that wasn't done or was done?
I want to say that some were effective, others were not effective.
Yes.
And actually, I'll give an example, because we grew up in the time when, especially for our parents and then in school, most of the teachers, the parents could punish us for things we've not done without knowing, or when they come home, they just know if something has happened, it must be the naughty person to be caned, but later you come and discover it's not that naughty person. But also, there are parents who actually talked to us and told us what you're doing is wrong and this is the direction to go. The same to the schools. For example, I can give you a very good example in school when I was in primary school. There used to be a teacher, a head teacher, who he was not a mathematics teacher, but he used to give us sums every morning. Actually, for us to school, the sun was the time. If you go to the school when the sun is up, obviously you are caned. But he used to give us mathematical sums using preparatory mathematics. It's a very nice book if you are those days you know it. Then if you do the sums, all of you, if you fail, then he canes you because you failed. So there's a day actually the whole class failed, and he caned all of us. When we did the sum with him, he found he had the wrong answer. And actually that made me really hate mathematics, because we had the wrong answer, but he had the wrong answer. I don't know how he had worked out. So he could not withdraw his canings, So for me, in that way, it made me hate mathematics nearly all of my life until I have started counting my own money, So I can say some of them were, and there are some teachers who used to talk to us. They could be able to come and explain to you what mistake you've done and tell you what punishment you're going to get. It might be a cane, or it might be sweeping, it might be slashing. Then after you've done the punishment, you realize that, yes, I made a mistake. But there are also some mistakes there are some actually which were being caned for no reason. In my high school, we had a teacher, when he's on duty, you could not meet him because he'll find a mistake on you, whether you like it or not. So we used to avoid him. So for me, I can say they are both effective and other
are not effective. All right. Now, before we get to move on to the next guest, Timothy, just very briefly, yes or no, do you support the reintroduction of corporal punishment in our schools? All right, we'll be getting back with Timothy Ekesa right there in regards to this conversation about corporal punishment. Good example given right there. You are punished, and then at the end of it all, you find out that the reason to which you were punished, it does not even stand. Again, bringing in the forms of discipline that are being employed in different situations and whether they are actually necessary and in the long run effective when it comes to questions about discipline. Remember, we welcome you to be part of this conversation using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 ever remains to be our official station handle. At Jane Wamboy is how you can find me on Twitter. Now, we are back with our guests on Zoom. We now move on to a parent, and this is Martha Oguna joining us all the way from Mombasa via Zoom. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Ray.
Well, you're used to Regina, but you're with me, Jane, today. Nonetheless, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you.
Now, question of discipline. As a parent, how would you describe discipline when it comes to raising your children?
For me, I still think discipline is a very key role in raising up children.
Yes.
The only thing that I normally say is that it depends on how you want to discipline the children, because I believe that everything has to be done with moderation. The issue that we have today is that the things that we are seeing to date is that they are not being done with moderation, whether it is actually talking to the children, whether it is caning them. For me, I still believe that I use the tool, but with moderation.
All right. Now, before we get to continue with this particular conversation, remember we're talking about corporal punishment this morning. And do stay with us, Martha. We'll be getting back to you in a bit. But we have some developing story that we want to get to before we continue with this particular conversation. Ray.
Now, across borders, and as you know, we always keep you updated on what is happening, not just within the country, regionally and internationally, is that a coup has been announced in Myanmar, and the country's powerful military has arrested San Suu, the leader of Myanmar's governing National League for Democracy Party. Now, the arrest, which came amid weeks of tension between the two sides, is because the military is refusing to accept the results of the country's general elections, which were held in November last year. Now, the National League for Democracy won enough seats to form government, but the army insists that the vote was fraudulent. Now, soldiers are on the streets of the capital and the main city, Yangon, and mobile and internet data connections and some phone services have been disrupted in major cities, while the state broadcaster, that is MRTV, says it is having a technical issue and is off air. We'll continue monitoring what is happening in regard to that particular developing story there in Myanmar. Remember, this country has been having a bit of unrest there, with some persecution of some Muslims, that is the Uyghur Muslims within Myanmar itself. So much has been said about the leadership of the NLD party. So we'll be keeping tabs on that development and keep you updated. Remember, you can also get further details in regard to this story and so much more on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. Any development in regard to this matter is also going to be highlighted in the course of this programming. Now we can shift gears and still continue having our conversation this morning in regard to corporal punishment. We have posed this question to you this morning. What is your take in regard to the proposal to reintroduce corporal punishment in the country, or rather within our learning institutions, as a form of just reining in on rogue indiscipline within these very institutions?
And there you have it. Do share with us your thoughts once again using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter and our official station handle at KBC Channel 1. Now we pick up from where we were with Martha Oguna, who is a parent, joining us via Zoom from Mombasa. Maybe we can take it up again when it comes to issues with discipline and you as a parent, how it plays out for you, and especially looking at your household and your parenting styles.
For me, as I had earlier, Ron said, is that I still discipline both through the corporal punishment and actually talking to the children. The only thing is that everything has to be done with moderation. That's my kid. Though my kids now are way past teenagers, for me, I think there's a certain stage that certain discipline measures work, and at certain stages they don't work. Like, for example, just using some caning, there's at a younger stage it would work. But at the point at which my children are at right now, at 14 and 16, I would use more of talking and more of reasoning. So those are some of the things that personally as a parent, I still do use. Now, when I compare with the way I was raised up, I think this was a bit different, because some of these things, like especially caning, was actually used to inflict more of fear that I wonder whether it was discipline. So some of these things needs to be balanced. We feared our parents, we feared our teachers. I mean, this should not be the case. The child has to understand why this is being done to them. And the question of whether to cane them or not, for me, it's never a question, because for me, I believe that this should be done. The only thing is that it should be in moderation. The problem we are seeing is because most of the teachers and most of the parents now are inflicting more of their anger than discipline. That's the difference.
Now, so do you support the reintroduction of this proposed reintroduction of corporal punishments in schools?
For me, I would say yes. The only question is, can this be done in a certain way that it does not, affect the child? Like, for example, do you know how many of the words that the teachers tell their children that affect them for many years to come? Even the things sometimes that we were told when growing up, those things affect even the child way more than probably the physical, whatever that happens to them. So everything has to be done in moderation. You can't remove a cane and then accept that a teacher can keep telling my child wewe ni mjinga. As in, these things, they affect a child forever. That would be my take.
All right. Now, looking at issues to do with discipline that we have been witnessing in this recent times, this wave of unrest across the schools, given children have been home for almost 10 months, and now they are back in school, and we are seeing this wave of unrest and in cases of indiscipline. Could parenting versus teaching be contradicting, looking at how our parents who are taking care of the kids in the space at home and discipline versus what they're finding in school right now? Could there be a disconnect?
Yes, there's a very, very big disconnect. In fact, I think COVID was a very big shock to many of their parents who actually had overstayed with the children that they never used to. We actually abdicated most of our duties to the teachers, which is wrong, that we don't complement each other, that the discipline that we want to exercise at home should be same as what continues in school. So most children, they actually are a different face when they're at home and a different face when at school. That's why you will be shocked when you go to school. You are actually seeing a parent saying, no, this cannot be my child. This cannot be my child. Yet, actually the teachers know the child in a different angle altogether. So there's a totally big disconnect between the two. And so this has to be properly discussed, and this has to be across board, that we should actually work together in a very, very amicable way, so that we get our children being disciplined in a way that does not affect them in the future. We actually seeing kids probably who didn't have much to do at home now, who are going to school and wondering, how do I catch up? There's so much that is going through them. Even as just adults, we are going through so much psychological effects of COVID itself. So these are already kids who have been going through so much, and we, as a researcher, by the way, I work as a researcher at the Aga Khan University. We've seen quite a number of children and adults saying that that they are affected at home by the things that were happening at home that they never knew that were going on at home because they used to be at school.
Yeah.
So you see now when they go back to the school, they already have carried a baggage from home.
And they take it to school.
Yeah.
Now, before we get to move on to the next guest, very briefly, do you think the idea of a cane versus a cane will work in school? Yes or no, before we get to the details?
Yes.
The idea versus the actual use?
Yes.
All right, so we'll be coming to you to just better understand that particular aspect. But before we continue with this corporal conversation, Ray, what is the latest that is coming in concern regards to this particular coup?
Yeah, I'd want to support what our guest there has just mentioned, the issue of she's in support of the cane, but that will be coming up in not too long. Now, some of the developing news across the globe is that a coup is underway in Myanmar, and Aung San Suu has been detained amid a military coup. Now, the coup has been announced in Myanmar. Why? Is that the country's powerful military has arrested Aung San Suu, who is the leader of the Myanmar's governing National League for Democracy, NLD party. The arrest came weeks after of tension between the two sides, and this is because the military is refusing to accept the results of the country's general elections that were held last year in November. Now, the NLD won enough seats to form a government, but the army insists that the vote was fraudulent. And some soldiers currently are on the streets of the capital and the main city, Yangon. As well as mobile internet data connections, as well as some phone services have been disrupted in major cities, while the state broadcaster, this is MRTV, says it is having a technical issue and is off air. We will be linking up with a link from the BBC not long to just highlight what is happening there. So do keep it right here, and remember we have further details on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. So much has been said about the military and its execution, or rather, execution of Muslims, the Uyghur Muslims in Myanmar. If you do not know who Aung San Suu Kyi is, well, you might need to check out on their bio online. Remember, she was recognized as one of, most influential leaders, and actually won a Nobel Prize, if I'm not too wrong. So this development has actually put her in somewhat of a difficult, or rather what we call a precarious situation. So you can Google it up. Look at the persecution of the Uyghur Muslims in Myanmar, and the consequent development that we're focusing on this morning is that there's a coup ongoing. The military has refused to accept the results, the outcome of the 2020, that is the 2020 November elections, where the NLD party that is led by San Suu won enough seats to form government. We'll keep you updated. If you're online, remember, we are also online on our various platforms. You can get us on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. And we invite you to give us feedback in regard to the matter that we're talking about, the issue of corporal punishment. Are you for it or against it? That proposal to have that reintroduced in our schools. That's some of our developing stories there. In as far as the global front is concerned, a coup is underway in Myanmar.
All right, there you have it. As and when we get more information, we'll be sure to keep you updated with what we receive in regards to that particular coup that is happening. But remember, we are still using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Do send in your thoughts in regards to this conversation that we are having right now here in studio about corporal punishment, the reintroduction of corporal punishment in our schools. As a parent, what forms of discipline do you employ when it comes to, discipline measures for your child? Do you resort to caning, or you go the talking way, or you just strike a balance when it comes to the two, as and when the situation demands? That is what we're talking about. And joining us for this particular conversation right now via Zoom still, we have Professor Okumu Bigambo, Professor of Communication and Public Relations, joining us right now. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Karibu sana to the program.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Karibu sana to Good Morning Kenya. Thank you for making time to be with us this morning in regards to this conversation about corporal punishment. Now, getting straight into it, looking at all your years of being an educator, what are your thoughts about corporal punishment as a form of discipline?
Before we have to think about three questions. One question is whose child, and the next, whose institutions are these schools? And
we seem to be having some connectivity issues there in regards to that particular Zoom link, but we'll be getting to that particular, back to that particular conversation with Professor Okumu Bigambo in regards to corporal punishment. But before we continue with that, Ray.
We're already having feedback, Jane, in regard to the conversation we're having this morning, and that's the issue of what Kenyans think about, that proposal to have the, corporal punishment reintroduced in our schools. Now, looking at those who are watching us live on Facebook, Gideon Mutai says, good morning.
Good morning.
In Kakamega, I think opting for corporal punishment may be best, though to some extent students need to be respected. That is according to Gideon Mutai.
Students need to be respected.
Respected, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is that. Then there's Mark Robbie who says, good morning. Good morning to you too. I'm checking in at from Nandi Mosoriot. Thank you very much, Mark Robbie. Get into the conversation. What is your take in regard to the reintroduction or the proposed reintroduction of corporal punishment in schools? On the other side, still in that same line, well, there's quite some feed here from Kevin Kenga. He says one problem is selecting the few cases, specific case, and passing a general solution to a specific problem. Abolishing caning only solved few cases, but brought about massive problems. And now that the solution is not working, they want to reverse on it, which then leads to another set of problems.
Yeah.
The society then and now is different. Flow of information was limited then, unlike now. Therefore, then, by caning, they brought fear, even though that system still had psychological problems. On the other hand, now the young know more than we used to. Plus, they are smart enough to know which laws favor their behavior. In summary, there's a big difference between correction and caning. Caning is not correction. We know some of our old classmates who are not moved by canes and they became numb to canes. Correction may include caning and talking etc. These are some of the views that have been sent in by some of our viewers. Please indicate where you're watching us from, whether you're using the Facebook Live platform or you are on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1 News. Mine is at Ray Manyara. My call here this morning goes under Jane Wamboy. So the question is, what is your take in regard to the proposed reintroduction of corporal punishment in our schools? As you ponder on that, work on your feedback. We take a short break, but do not go away. We'll be right back.